Okay, ladies and gentlemen, time's come to 12:30. Can I welcome everybody? Nice to see so many people, even though I guess quite a large number of taxi drivers. I hope you've managed to get the relevant paperwork, had a chance to look. And I'm sorry it's only just been made available, but we were obviously working through the papers for this meeting. And I know it's difficult when you haven't had an awful long time to read through them. Hopefully we'll get past that. Apologies for absence, I've got one, and that's quite right. I think everyone else is here. Thank you. Disclosable pecuniary interests. Will somebody move the minutes of the 10th and the 20th of December and 21st of January to turn out seconded? All in favour? Yeah, very much indeed. Which leaves public questions and statements. Shall I take them now? Or we could move the paper forward, couldn't we? Yeah. What we'll do, because most of the questions are related to agenda item 7, I'll take the public statements now, and we'll move directly on to item 7 to follow the questions. That makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, and the first person I've got is Mr. Martin Kroll. If you'd like to take a seat there, sir, and if you press the button, someone will show you, that's it. And when you've finished, if you press the button as well, it goes off.
Do I have to read it all out?
No, we've got the question, and you've got an answer. And the thing, you get a follow-up question if you want one.
Well, unfortunately, we haven't had this that long, so...
No. I mean, I think, and I do appreciate it, I think the sentiment is we've listened to what the sector has had to say, and in large measure, in fact, we pretty much agree with you. And when Steve gets to present it, you'll go into a bit more detail, will you?
Yeah, and I've got officers here to answer any detailed questions. You want me to present it first and then take questions?
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get him to speak first, Steve to speak first, and you sit there and relax, and we'll see where we go. Steve.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Policy before Cabinet has been developed. Sorry.
I should have read that out, shouldn't I? Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry. I should have read this out. I'm obliged to inform this meeting is being videoed. Members of the public are entitled to film the proceedings, providing they comply with Shropshire Council's terms and conditions, which are available today at the far end of the room. If you're filming for commercial purposes, you must first obtain permission, without which you may not proceed. Any member of the public who has any concerns should raise them now. Okay, sorry about that. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, thank you. The policy before Cabinet has been developed following extensive consultation with the trade and seeks to tighten up control on public safety following a number of high-profile cases where safeguarding policy and practice have been found to be inadequate. That's obviously outside the county, whilst helping to promote vibrant taxi trade vital to rural county like Shropshire. The feedback from the trade has been largely supportive of the proposals, but we are aware, and as I will announce shortly, have responded positively to concerns around emissions and vehicle safety standards in particular, having already addressed concerns around vehicle colour, zoning and wheelchair accessibility. We've had further comments following the publication of the Cabinet report, the majority of which we've already addressed. The Cabinet takes its responsibilities for public safety and safeguarding extremely seriously, and this has been at the forefront of our changes to the policy. But we've listened and responded to trade feedback. The amendments that have been now been circulated will provide for an extended transitional period for the meeting of emissions and vehicle safety standards, an alignment of these two requirements, removal of the highest emission standards, and further strengthening of the safeguarding requirements. The proposals will not place an excessive financial burden on drivers and all operators, rather. We will in the meantime continue to work closely with the trade to implement changes on a voluntary basis where they can lead to higher levels of public safety for both passengers and vehicles. With that, Leader, I've tabled the amendments which have been circulated and move the original document with
the amendments.
With the amendments.
Okay. Where's Francis?
There are any questions?
Do you want to come and join us for this? Because Francis is the expert on this area, and if anyone's got any questions, we'll try and. I'm guessing poor Francis will have to field them, or Steve, but certainly won't be me. I'll just say at this point that when I saw the policy and I got the feedback from taxi drivers and the sector, I was very sympathetic. You know, I think what originally was proposed wouldn't have been good, and I'm glad that we've amended it, and I hope it's been amended in a way that you find satisfactory. Which leads me back to Mr. Croft. We've heard that. Do you want to ask any questions at this stage? So
I need to press the button.
yeah. Roughly point towards you.
Unfortunately, you know, the questions I have planned to a response. Some of them have been answered. It's just one mainly, is that the cost of a wheelchair accessible vehicle is extreme. The websites that the council have given us to actually check what standard the vehicles are does not cover commercial vehicles. The majority of our vehicles are commercial vehicles. Euro 5 in commercial vehicles did not come in until they started coming in at the beginning of 2012 and running towards the deadline, which I believe was September 2012. So if we have to change a vehicle, I noticed, you know, if it's damaged by an accident, you have a transfer. But if somebody has to change a vehicle from mechanical failure or something like that, reading this, it sounds like it's perhaps a new plate for a vehicle. Now, shouldn't it be a transfer rather than a new plate?
Yeah.
And also, shouldn't the age on a wheelchair accessible vehicle, due to the cost and due to the age that they actually came into Euro 5 standard, shouldn't that incorporate a little bit longer for us to change to Euro 5?
Okay. Do you want, or Francis?
I think that's quite a technical
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, Francis, I mean, it would seem to me, in the event of something being damaged, would it not be classified as a transfer and not a new application? It was pretty much suggested.
Yeah, and I mean the amendment that, one of the amendments Steve's proposed takes into account that if there is accident damage, then that like-for-like transfer will be permitted. Similarly,
Would that qualify on mechanical failure as well? Because I think it was a
we
second.
haven't gone as far as direct mechanical failure. We've retained it in terms of the accident damage on the basis that we feel as officers that there needs to be that cut-off point. The mechanical failure, you know, our officers can work in terms with each applicant on a case-by-case basis as to the actual way to resolve that particular matter when it arises. But the opportunity, I think, to prolong unnecessarily, I think, the actual changes that we are trying to put in place overall wouldn't necessarily be helped if we extended it that far at this stage.
Okay. Thank you. That's your question. Next on my list, I've got Mr. Richard Price. Mr. Price here? Yeah. The same thing, but you don't have to read your question out because you've got a question you answer. But you know, obviously, what you've heard. If you've got any follow-up questions.
Not a follow-up question as such, apart from, yeah, I can see, having just briefly read the amendments, my question has been attended to.
Yeah.
And the policy hopefully will go through with the amendments, like other people have said.
Yeah.
We need to move on. As a trade, we need to move on. So there's got to be a cut-off point somewhere.
Yes.
But they just need to be a safety net for certain circumstances. So I'm quite happy with the response as long as it goes through on the amendments.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm hopeful that'll happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I've got Mr. Matt Young.
Yeah.
Same thing applies. You get a follow-up.
Yeah, I think really just echoing what Martin said.
Yes.
I think the mechanical failure
should be included.
When you say mechanical failure, you're talking about mechanical failure of the vehicle?
Mechanical failure of the vehicle that renders it essentially faulty.
Yes.
I had a situation recently where the cam belt went on one of the vehicles.
Yes.
Perfectly good car, in a lot of respects, passed its MOT without a problem. The cam belt went, and that vehicle is essentially not worth repairing. So I think mechanical failure, it's important to include that as well as the accident repair as well. And as I said, for those reasons, it can essentially be a write-off.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you're driving along, you do have a mechanical failure, not only are you now losing work because you can't use your car, you've now got to find quite a substantial amount of money to replace that vehicle. If you have to move to Euro 5, you may have been driving a Euro 4 model, an 07 model for example, and now you've got to move to a 2010 model, which is 3 to 4 times the price. So I think that, the burden is already there when you're losing work and the vehicle being off the road. Added to that, extra expense of buying the vehicle.
I think I understand it now. Francis, do you want to comment, or Steve? I mean, this certainly isn't going to involve, I wouldn't imagine, a huge number of vehicles, is it really? Or is it?
I mean, from my perspective, it's not impossible that those situations are going to arise. However, with every business that operates at the moment, if we weren't asking for the Euro 5, we'd still have to have built into their business plans, their business cases around those eventualities. Now, in terms of that shift from a like-for-like replacement, yes, there is potentially that additional money is required to go to that higher spec vehicle in terms of how we're wording the policy. But ultimately, that business case for the commercial side of it, businesses should still have that in place. And what we're asking is just a little bit of consideration in terms of what those vehicles are replaced by.
Steve, do you want to comment on that?
I don't think there's anything more to add to that. We are where we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just say that Francis was mentioning that the case would be on a case-by-case basis for individually. I think that would be great, as long as we had some, but we need something in writing. It's all very easy to say, oh yeah, we said we'd look at it case by case, and your case doesn't count. And you say, why? It just doesn't count.
I mean, would it be too difficult to add to the wording? We'll look something around that. I mean, I don't want to do this, I want to do too much.
When I was referring case by case basis, that wasn't around moving in principle from the actual policy as we're proposing it to be amended, but it's more around the individual licensing officers working with the trade in terms of providing guidance and assistance to actually find the best way forward from a commercial point of view for them. So I wasn't meaning case by case in terms of a different line taken with the
No, okay,
policy.
I understand. Okay, thank you. We'll take that on board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Next, I have got Simon Duncan. Simon, same thing applies.
I'm actually speaking on behalf of Samantha Williams and a slight change.
Yeah, I just
looked at it.
I thought you didn't look like Samantha, because that's what but you never know nowadays.
I'm happy with the amendments that were put in, and I don't really have anything else to
Okay.
after what we have always been.
Thank you very much indeed.
Unless we're very happy with that.
That's very kind. Next, I've got Mr. David Wilson. Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Same thing. We've obviously, you don't have to read your whole question, but you would know that. You've had an answer. Is there any supplementary you'd like to follow up?
A supplementary observation, perhaps. I appreciate there has been some effort to simplify the transitional arrangements.
Yes.
I wonder whether they could be further simplified to the effect that from the 1st of April 2016, licences will only be granted by way of new or renewal applications for vehicles that meet Euro 5 emission standards, and perhaps Euro NCAP 4. And that once licensed, those vehicles can continue to be licensed, or the licence is renewed, up to March 2022, which is one of your dates, I think. However, from the 1st of April 2019, licenses will only be granted to new vehicles that meet Euro 6 standard, which is again a bit of a compromise on your dates, but it condenses what were 7 Euro emission dates and 2 Euro NCAP dates into 2 dates. It's far easier at the present time. You've got Euro emissions 1 year, you've got NCAP the next year, you've got new Euro emissions the other. It's very complicated. Vehicles that become licensed almost would immediately become unlicensed. And if I can digress into others with regards to their concerns with regards to mechanical difficulties, mechanical failure, I get the impression that what's being spoken about is catastrophic mechanical breakdown, where the vehicle is beyond uneconomic repair. And it may cost you £4,000 to replace an engine, but an insurance company might write a vehicle off for £2,000 for damage. Mechanical problems.
Look, I've got that. Yeah. And I shouldn't think that happens too frequently, probably. Do you want to comment on that, Francis? On the, I think what Mr. Wilson was saying, by changing the date slightly, it would make it simpler. Is that fair? Would you like to comment?
In terms of the actual dates, I'm not against simplification if it helps the trade, so that's the first point I'd like to make. But during the process of going through the original consultation process, where we had a simpler set of rules, we then got feedback to actually say that we needed to be a bit more detailed to make the distinction between petrol and diesel and the different levels of Euro rating. So whilst in its own right it might appear complex, each line is only going to be relevant for a particular set of circumstances. So when you're sitting with a vehicle that needs to be replated, relicensed, you will find the bit that relates to you. And again, I would just encourage people to be assured that the officers involved in the process of getting to this point are fully aware of that and will provide the guidance and the help to the trade each time the renewals and the new licences are actually due. If I was to look at this, I would want to look at this beyond this forum to see whether that actually doesn't detract from what's already there, and if it doesn't, and can still deliver what we're looking for based on the feedback we've had throughout the consultation, then can we take that forward outside this meeting?
My suggestion would be, after listening to Francis, we're not saying it's a bad idea. In actual fact, it sounds like what we're doing is going to make our lives more difficult rather than yours. And I see no reason why we couldn't take it as we've got it today, but bring it back to a future cabinet meeting when Francis has had time to, to look at the ramifications and consult with the trade. So we're not saying no. We're saying not today. Or if cabinet agrees with that, we'll go with what we've got, but we'll give Francis the opportunity to go away and bring it back to cabinet at a future point. Because I think it's a point worth considering, is my view. Okay?
Thank you greatly, appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, we have Samantha Williams. Yeah. Who's instead of Mr. Paul Merrifield.
Yeah.
Paul here. He's telling me I'm wrong.
No, you're right, you're right.
Same thing applies.
Yeah, I've read the amendments and we're quite happy that
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. Next, Mr. Jeffrey Herdig.
I've got a couple of questions which I've been trying to find out I've run out for Vectra. I've been trying to find out what Euro engine they're in. I've tried the 3 sites I was given, but I've tried even Vauxhall. They don't know. How are the assistant officers going to know this? How are they going to know what is a Euro 4 or a Euro 5 engine?
It's a fair question.
Because I can't find out.
No? Well, let's see if Francis knows. Hey, you might have dodged the whole process. You might have a unique car that no one can identify.
I can't do them about.
In terms of the actual practicalities of establishing the information, I can only reiterate what I've said in relation to the other bits, that we will work with those individual drivers to find out information. If it's not available, there is the strong possibility that the vehicle doesn't meet those standards. Now, whether that's the case or not, I can't sit here and say definitely, but the honest answer is we've got to look at each individual vehicle and assist you to find that information. If it's not available on the ones that we've already tried to point you in the direction of, then we need to do a little bit of work with you on an individual basis to get that information.
The driver is going to buy a car and not know what NCAP it is.
Yeah.
How does he play the car? He doesn't know what NCAP is.
If you're looking to actually buy a new vehicle, then not new vehicles.
No. I think we've answered the question as best we can. I think there will be anomalies. Personally, when we get the referendum, I'd vote to go out of Europe. That probably solve a lot of problems around Euro emissions, wouldn't it? But that's just me. Okay, thank you, sir.
Hang on, you've got one more.
You only really get one question, but I'll give you another if you.
I've got a car that goes out in May. Now, reading what I read on the chart, that can't be relicensed in May. Because I got
Notice?
04, which is, I believe, is a 3, Euro 3.
Right, in terms of the actual detail as the policy is currently written, my advice is you need to have that conversation with one of the licensing officers now.
I've got 6 weeks.
Yeah, in terms of actually being able to put that vehicle, you have an opportunity to replace your vehicle at Euro 4 standard now that will allow you a further 3 years before you have to look at another one.
That's why I haven't. What if I've got enough money to buy a car now? Because that's the problem. I haven't.
I think to be truthful, you need to ask the question of
It's going to
officers.
stop most
No,
of the
I think
we're in the same problem.
I think you need to ask the question of officers when we finish the meeting, because I think you've asked your question. I mean, and I think continue to raise the questions with them outside of the meetings. I'm not saying you haven't got a valid question. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to get us anywhere trying to have that conversation.
Once it's passed today, that's it.
The conversation between the two of you.
We're stuffed.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's the speakers I've had on that matter. And we're still on item 7 now, Steve. You've made the proposition with the amendments as noted. Does anybody want to speak on that? Lee?
Yes, I'd like to speak. I could lead it. I would just like to say that having had the issue highlighted to myself by a number of operators, I'm pleased that Steve and the licensing team have responded in such a positive way and got us amendments that I accept. Some of the operators clearly will be unhappy about the impact of some of these amendments, but we have responsibilities to the emissions. Some of our county towns are struggling with their air quality, and my health colleagues over the way there will tell you that we need to make progress on this, and that's what this is all about. So do not lose sight of that, particularly the NCAP. I'm talking about the safety of passengers here. So I accept that there are financial implications. We've colleagues in licensing and Steve's portfolio has come some considerable way to accommodate that, and I'd like to second the amendment if I could. Thank you.
Okay. I'd just like to say that, Mr. Higgins there spoke to me about it tonight, and reserves from, reservations from the very beginning about what was proposed. So I'm pleased that we've come to a compromise that you can live with. Because taxis in a rural county like Shropshire are really important, and we don't want to fall out with you. So, Anne.
Just very quickly, Leader, I'd like to welcome the part in the new policy addressing the safety of the children and vulnerable persons and safeguarding. I think this is really, really good work, and it sends out exactly the right message on behalf of the Council and all of us. I think you only have to read the Louise Casey report, which has just been published, and I do recommend that everybody reads it actually, because it is one of the best reports that I have ever, most readable and user-friendly reports, and she uses loads of quotes from councillors, from members, from officers, from children, families, carers, and it really is very, very stark, and it sets out a very good lesson, which is what she proposes to do. She's been seconded over from the Troubled Families team, and I'm really glad she's going to go back to the Troubled Families team because I think she's very creditable. And on a lighter note, I think perhaps Mr. Chilcott could do with reading this and learning a few lessons from it, because she has covered 7,000 interviews in a very short time and very snappily produced an amazing report that's come straight to the point. So I think I would welcome that as portfolio holder for children, obviously, and on behalf of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have a proposition that's been seconded. Is everybody? Right, I see. I apologise. Because we've taken that out of order, we need to hear item 6 before we vote on it. So, Joyce?
Thank you very much.
Francis, you can listen.
Would you like me to keep it brief, or would you like to know what was actually discussed?
I'd like to be as brief as you possibly can.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to Sally Porter, the Safeguarding Board, who came along to our meeting, along with the new superintendent, Williams, West Mercia Police. She came forward with some recommendations and alterations, which our school committee looked at and we took on board, which are now the amendments that are being put forward by Steve Chalmers. We hugely welcome this. As a result of the J report, I think we're all looking at things in a different way, and it's having a positive impact, and I agree with. And this is a brilliant report, and I'd like to say well done to officers and for all the different agencies that work together and actually come together to produce this.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Joyce. Okay, we've heard. Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, can I just thank Joyce and Scruton for the work they put in on this, which really helps strengthen the safeguarding issues, especially in the amendments and the policies coming forward. Thank you.
No, good work, well done. Okay, folks, we've got a proposition that's been seconded. Are we all in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. I mean, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I've got a feeling you might have something more important to do with your lives. 5, matter referred from Scrutiny Council, there are none. We've had Joyce's report on item 6. On item 2, there's no one here to speak to that, so we'll pass over that. 7 we've done, which takes us to item 8, which is the Revenue Monitoring Report 43. Story.
This report details the Q3 projection for the year, for the year end, which is anticipated to deliver a small overspend of £371,000. This projection is established by reviewing our current position with regards to delivery of saving proposals, taking account of pressures that have been identified elsewhere in the Council's accounts, and finally by netting off any compensatory savings we have identified. The position has improved by 1.2 million since the reported in Q2 savings, and this improvement is the net effect of an increase in budgetary pressures within audit services of 2.9 million, and a further underspending within corporate budgets of 3.6 million as a result of identifying and releasing uncommitted costs and income such as council-wide grants. The report provides a detailed breakdown of the Council's financial position in the current year and considers the impact on the Council's general reserves. At this stage of the year, over 39 million of saving proposals are likely to be delivered, and other pressures are being managed by alternative proposals. This leaves a net overspend of £371,000 and a reserves balance that would remain at over 14.5 million by the year end. Leader, I move the recommendations A, B, C, D and E to this report.
And I'll second those to the Chair. I've got Roger Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulate officers for managing the budget it must have been very, very hard, especially noting that the overspends in social care of 5.4 million, looked after children of 1.6 million. Planning, I see as increased by 1.4 million, so that will be useful. I note very little comment about Veolia and the renegotiation of that contract, which was, I thought, due to be carried out this current financial year with a predicted savings. I think it's being balanced by the extra income from 1.4 million. But I see a reference in there about the transformation fund, and I'm not sure how much is in this. It seems to be used for various reasons, and it doesn't seem to be noted here.
Could you say that again? I'm awfully sorry. George said something to me, I missed what you said. Just the last sentence.
The transformation fund.
Yes.
How much is there? Because some of it is being used within the budget,
yes,
and I'm not sure how much is still there, how much is available, where can I find it?
Okay,
please.
Well, in answer to your thank you for your congratulations to officers, and I'm sure that equally applies. I'm sure you would equally apply to the portfolio holder and cabinet who worked equally as hard. So we thank you for that. The Veolia negotiations are still ongoing, and obviously there is some commercial sensitivity around that budget. But I suggest come and have a word with George at some point if you want to do that. Do you want to comment on the last bit? Or not?
No, I'm happy to respond. The Transformation Fund is was a base budget contribution of, from memory, 1.345 million, which was identified in base budget for transformation purposes. That has now been reduced going forward as a saving, but there is still, at this moment in time, a base budget of around about 300,000. Going forward, any underspends that have in the past been against that budget have been put into a transformation reserve, and that should be shown in the paper up there. But I was just going to check before I answer.
Okay, I've got Tim next.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I know it's a relatively small point in the entirety of this paper, but paragraph 8 specifically talks about leader, and the recommendations include a recommendation that we act as a accountable body for the leader programme. This has been, as you I'm sure aware, I am Vice Chair of the AMB Partnership, one of the Vice Chairs representing this Council. LEADER is a major opportunity that has been successful in the past at bringing money into the county and gearing that money up to deliver predominantly in the past programme social projects. The new LEADER is very much inclined and revolves around employment and business. So this is very, very significant for our rural areas. And I would just like you to note that and urge you to support that. It's an important part of the way this council is working in the south of Shropshire to produce economic benefit.
Okay, thank you. Are we all happy with that? Okay, thank you. Steve, I believe I said nobody's here from scrutiny, to be truthful.
You didn't see me.
I didn't see you. And to be honest, no one let us know. I didn't have a name down.
Would you like me to report from the scrutiny? Or not?
Can I? Yeah, come on.
Okay.
If you want to. Never let me say that.
Hello, I was asked to report from the Enterprise Growth Scrutiny Committee. As of the 29th of January, a report was given by James Walton on the financial strategy. Although a lot of debate took place across parties, no other solutions were put forward as an alternative, and as a consequence the recommendations were approved. Would you like to know them, or are you happy?
No, we're happy.
Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry about that.
The third quarter report shows year-to-date expenditure of £34.4 million, which represents 51.6% of the reprofile budget. That's 75% of the way through the year. During the quarter, new capital receipt funding has been added to the programme for the acquisition of the former Oswald Street Health Centre. Other increases to the programme have been funded from existing reserves or external funding. Reprofiling of the programme of 8.3 million has significantly reduced the pressure on delivery of capital receipts in this financial year. Although 2.9 million of receipts have been generated to date and a further £700,000 are projected to be delivered by the year end. As a result, the current programme will be fully funded and the surplus capital receipts held will be set aside to enable the Council to generate a one-off revenue saving in 2015-16. Again, Leader, I move the recommendations A, B and C to this report.
And I second them from the Chair as before. Roger, you've indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, to pick up where the portfolio was there, I see there's £5.8 million of capital receipts, which is unspent from this financial year to be carried forward to next year. Note that. Congratulations, if it's in order. But disappointed that BDUK, we are still not saying that we're matching any. We still have problems, and I heard on the radio this morning about the issues around the Clun area of businesses down there who are suffering because of it, whether it's a commercial or not down there.
Yeah,
but
I heard that as well.
If we want the county to go forward, if we want employment to improve, if we want entrepreneurs, then we do really need urgently to invest in broadband and increase that speed. BDUK, we're using their money, we haven't matched it at present. I'm disappointed that we're not doing it now.
Well, let's make the first point. We've got an extra £5.4 million through the LEP. And let's be completely honest, Roger, if we'd taken your advice and said we were going to borrow the money ourselves, that's £5.4 million we wouldn't have got. You know, it is common sense. If you say you're going to borrow the money yourself and do it yourself, you're not going to get financial aid. So I think the way we've handled this has been absolutely appropriate. And unfortunately, because of the size of a rural county like Shropshire, if you didn't hear it on the radio this morning, it'll cost £500,000 to get 200 houses. And that's the scale of the problem. It's a huge amount of money. Let's be quite frank, from a relatively small number of people. But we will continue to progress and just continue to try to find the match funding. And I'm confident we'll manage to do that. Okay, everyone happy with that? Thank you very much. Item 10, Council Business Plan Financial Strategy. Michael.
The financial strategy is very much a rolling plan that is updated throughout the financial year, taking into account revised projections for our resources and for our spend. This financial strategy sets the budget for 2015-16 based on the latest information, including the final local government finance settlement, the latest for 2015-16 council tax and business rate projections, and the 2014-15 year end projected return on the collection of funds. So it's a massive sort of exercise. The strategy also considers the council's progress on achieving the saving targets set for the 3-year period from 2014 to 17, and makes adjustments to ensure that a balanced 2015-16 budget is very much set. The funding gap over the 3-year period has remained at 80 million. Fortunately, it's not growing, with savings of 58.9 million projected up to and including 2015-16. Further savings required to balance the budget and offset spending pressures totaling 15.1 million have been met by additional ongoing and one-off resources. Again, Leader, I move the recommendations to this report.
Okay, and then once again, I second it. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Save a lot of what I could say to Council, no need to repeat it. But
I like hearing you twice. Come on, give us a flavour.
Understanding it, and it's to do with the consultation that's been carried out within it. The performance scrutiny did look at the budget that was there. I made a request at that meeting to actually see the responses that had been made as part of the consultation. It was going to be put, I understand, in the members' library. I haven't seen it. It's still not there.
Yeah, I thought
is it there?
No, I thought what actually was said. No, I thought what actually was said. I'll let you answer the question. But it would be inappropriate to put a lot of it in the members' room because everybody has access, including the public, really, in the day, and there were things within it.
So the members' secretary, yeah.
Yeah, we said the members' secretariat.
Yeah.
I think that's what said, not the members' room. But James.
Yeah. What we've the consultation is now closed, and we've taken all of the consultation responses. We're now going through that, and there are within that a number of responses from individuals where they name individuals themselves or whatever. So we're just going through and either redacting that information or contacting the individuals just to ensure that they are happy that their information is made available, and then then that will then be passed around to all members, and we're planning to put that as an appendix into the financial strategy report that goes to council. So it would then become available for everybody to see. But until we're just working through making sure that we don't disclose information that we shouldn't do, as we discussed in the scrutiny.
I'm quite proper.
Yeah,
should be like Roger.
Yeah, right. The consultation was carried out. Cabinet is making the decision today.
No, that's not true. No.
Council's
recommendation.
Cabinet's making their recommendation to get data council. I haven't seen the responses. All I can go on is what's written here. And I noted some of the comments, and if I go to page 14, and really, this really sticks in my wherever. It says, our responses are that we believe we can redesign services around the customer to reduce costs. Whilst understanding the outcomes we're aiming to achieve, we are not certain about how services will look until we have completed the design work.
Well, what's the problem with that, Roger?
We are making savings, asked to make savings in different services, adult services, children's services, like that. I don't know whether I want those services to make those savings or whether the savings could be done elsewhere. Haven't seen the responses.
Roger.
If I can, Chairman, I was disappointed that at the Parish and Town Council conference on Monday, despite repeated requests, there was no cabinet member or senior officer attended to actually explain to them exactly why the council tax support grant to parish and town councils has been withdrawn and retained by Shropshire Council. It's still coming back about the effect that is there. And in fact,
perhaps you can help me here. What effect are you talking about? Can you give me an example?
I've got a letter here to my school where I'm a chairman of, and it says, as you may be aware through the local media, Shrewsbury Town Council is going to receive substantially less funding, which will be a minimum of £250,000 of Shropshire Council, with the expectation of taking on other services as well to save Shropshire Council money. That means that we may not be in a position to fulfil all our other commitments, and that is being repeated.
Well, right, stop for a second. Let me stop you there. Let's be completely clear, Roger. We don't have any money. The council's, it's public money. It's all public money. All public money. That's the first point. You yourself have highlighted the point of the pressures we are having in adult social care and children's services. I noticed the headlines in the Shropshire Star when council were extremely upset with us. Well, I'll tell you what, and somebody sent me an email talking about morality. Well, what sort of morality is it when you stick your council precept up by 16.9%, when you've got the thick end of £400,000 in the bank? You know, we wouldn't be doing this unless there were pressures on budgets which we cannot afford to compromise on. That's the first point. And to go to your first point, when you're redesigning services, and if you took time out to go and talk to the officers like I do, you'd find out that the redesign work in adult social care is delivering seriously better outcomes. I can give you a whole pile of emails and letters we received from the public praising the outcomes in adult social care. We've got staff who are motivated, and we're saving money. And I know it's difficult for you to understand, but you can spend less money and get better outcomes. The answer isn't always throwing money at the problem. And I can give you a whole list about town and parish councils. I can give you, well, let's pick one in particular. Let's pick Ludlow, where a specific councillor from a specific party was named in a report when a 6-figure payout was made at an industrial tribunal. You know, maybe the town and parish councils need to look at themselves sometimes. Anyway, Roger, you want to come back?
Yes, please, Chairman. I thought Shropshire Council had a partnership with parish and town councils. What has been done by taking their money, Shropshire Council has always argued, and I've supported that argument, that money should not be ring-fenced. But really, the morality of the decision is that government gave Shropshire Council, Shropshire Council's council tax support grant as a few £1 million. It also gave Shropshire Council £648,000 to pass on to parish and town councils as a council tax support grant. But Shropshire Council has decided, with no consultation, nothing at all, just announced it at 36 hours notice that they were not going to pass on this £648,000 to parish councils. When they had set their 3-year financial settlement, financial budget, and it's left them high and dry, many of them. And I have quoted that I know of 2 parish councils, essentially the same precept, essentially the same number of houses. One parish council is losing £600, the other parish council is losing just over £2,000 because of the type of housing and the social deprivation there is in that area. So it is not equal to every parish council. It isn't 500.
No, let me come back. Let me give you some of the hardship. We had, I've had Mr. Pickles, the Mayor of Broseley, contact me on many occasions. In year ending 31st of March 2014, they delivered a £36,000 underspent. They couldn't even spend the money they budgeted for to spend. And again, if you look at Broseley, and they're very upset, their total budget from the precepts, 155,000. They've got nearly £200,000 in reserves. You know, you're the one that's always come forward and said the money shouldn't be sitting in reserves, it should be used. This is public money, and the pressures in adult social care and children's services aren't just in Shrewsbury or Herefordshire, or Shropshire, they're across the whole of Shropshire. And when millions and millions of pounds is sitting in the bank accounts of towns and parish councils, isn't it appropriate we all help each other out?
If we're talking about reserves, I see in the paper before us, I think it is, where the policy, the plan was to have £11.1 million in reserves. We've actually got £14.4 million in reserves. So that's £3 million over and above the reserve. So if we're talking about...
Why do you think that is, Roger?
What about Shropshire
Why do you think that is, Roger? Why do you think that is? You've just highlighted the point yourself, that redesign of services doesn't give you a guaranteed financial saving or return. You just highlighted that. And that's why you need to build up your reserves in case the savings you're anticipating don't materialise. The reserves are there for exactly that purpose. And when you're doing a piece of design work, listen, you close a library. Is that what you want to do, perhaps? You can say, I close that library, this is the money it saves. You can put it in black and white in your accounts. But redesigning the way the library service works, you can project the savings, but until you deliver them, they're not there. So it makes absolute sense to keep money in reserves. If we'd listened to you 2 years ago, we'd have been bankrupt and we'd have had the government crawling over us because we wouldn't have delivered a balanced budget. We'd have had no reserves left.
If I can, Chairman, I was at Ponsonby Parish Council meeting on Monday night. Monday afternoon, the clerk sent me a letter that she'd had off Shropshire Council. Ponsonby Parish Council had £1,800 removed from it, taken away from it. A letter was sent out last Wednesday, was not copied to me, went to the parish council and all the appropriate, some organisations in it, to say that Shropshire Council wanted to divest itself of the library in Ponsonby. And it wanted community groups to take it on. And if there wasn't a community group to take it on, they would have to close that library. Parish Council has set its precept, it's already there for next year, it's already looking at how it can save money, and Shropshire Council really, I don't think they understand at times. They sent a letter out 5 days ago saying that, look, this library, we're going to close it if you don't take it on. Or
I believe what you're doing is paraphrasing what was said in the letter, Roger, and trying to make a political point, which you're fair dues, you're allowed to do that. But it doesn't come back to the point that we're facing a challenge like none we've faced before. The pressures are continually building on the budgets that we can't compromise on, adult social care and children's services. And everybody needs to realise, you know, if you've got millions of pounds sitting in your banks across the county, the rainy day has arrived. And the reason we're trying to, and thank goodness we've got 14.4 million in reserves, because if the savings we're identifying through design don't come through, we've got something to fall back on. You spend that money, Roger, which I know you probably do when you come forward with your alternative budget, and you would have been in serious trouble, as would the whole of Shropshire anyway. I think, anybody else want to speak? No? We're all happy to accept that, Michael? Thank you. Item 11. Robustness of estimates and adequate reserves. Michael.
The robustness of estimates and adequate reserves data is a statutory requirement as part of the annual budget process. The paper considers the process of ensuring that all budgetary assumptions used are reasonable for both revenue and capital strategy. The paper also considers the level of reserves held, including the general fund balance, to assess whether they are adequate. A risk-based approach is taken to calculate the appropriate level of balances to be held. And for 2015-16, this has been calculated at 15.9 million. It is anticipated that the level held by the Council at the end of this financial year will be at 14.5 million. The risk-based target reduces marginally in future years, and it's very much anticipated that the level of balances held will be broadly in line with the target in the future. Again, I move the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2.
Okay, seconded. Any all in favour? Thank you very much. Item 12.
The report details the 2014-15 estimated outturn position for the council tax and nonetheless declares collection fund of 3.155 million surplus. Variation in the actual amount collected against the projected can occur for both funds as a result of a number of factors, including the variation in collection rates, uptake of discounts and reliefs and changes in the local economy. Leader, I move the recommendations contained in this report 2.1, 2.4 inclusive.
Okay, seconded. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to note that of the surplus that is mentioned about the council tax, some of it really, again, is parish and town council money. I note that it's only being distributed to the other principal authorities, namely the police and the fire.
Yes.
But some of that tax would have been given out to parish and town councils as part of their precept, because it's a total tax amount that is deducted on each house.
Let's be absolutely clear about this. Parish and town councils get what they've precepted. If we collected less, we don't take any money off them. And consequently, if we collect more, we don't give them any back. It gives them some stability to know that what they've precept for is what they're going to get. If the collection rate hadn't been as high, and we follow your argument, we'd be going to them to take money off them, which wouldn't be very sensible. Yeah, of course you can.
But this council sets its percentage, whether it's optimistic or pessimistic, whichever, but the council set its percentage that they would collect. So this surplus is available.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question, Roger. If we set our expectation level, if it had been less and we collected less money than we put in the budget. Are you suggesting we should go to town and parish councils and take money off them? Because that is the logical outcome of what you're saying.
It's a discussion maybe you can have with parish and town councils to obtain their view, but also included in this is the number of new houses which are erected during the year and are added to the budget after the December tax base is set. So we put the December tax base, agreed at council as so-and-so, any house that is built now and starts paying council tax, and in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and all the rest of the financial year, that house is paying tax, and some of that tax, it's highlighted in their council tax bill, Shropshire Council, Police, Fire, Parish Council, and that does not go there.
I think the thing you misunderstand is this is all public money. You know, we don't take money into this authority and spend it. You know, for goodness sake, all the frippery that was there in years gone by, all the buffets, all the food, all the water, we are in hard times. This is public money. And if it stays with Shropshire Council, it's still public money. Anyway, we'll move on. Are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Item 13, Treasury Management.
The report outlines the Treasury management activities of the Council in the last quarter. It highlights the economic environment in which Treasury management decisions have been made and in the interest rate forecast of the Council's Treasury Advisor. It also updates members of the internal Treasury team's performance. And again, during the third quarter of 2014-15, the internal Treasury team achieved a return of 0.57% on the Council's cash balances, outperforming the benchmark by 0.27%. And this amounts to an additional income of £94,500 during the quarter, which is included within the Council's projected outturn position in the monthly revenue monitor. I move the recommendation 2-1.
Good, seconded. Yeah. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Next, Michael.
Have a glass of water.
Treasury strategy. Hey, whatever we're paying you, it's not enough.
The report proposes the Treasury strategy for 2015-16 and recommends prudential indicators for 2015-16 to 17-18. And the key points to note in the report are: borrowing is largely driven by the capital programme strategy. From 2011-12, the Council's borrowing requirement has been significantly reduced due to the government changing the way in which it funds the Council's capital expenditure and providing capital grants rather than supported borrowing approval. The bank is expected to remain in its historic low level of 0.5% until December of 2015, when it is forecast to rise to 0.75%. Long-term borrowing rates are expected to be higher than investment rates during 2015-16. Therefore, long-term borrowing may be postponed in order to maximise savings in the short term. The Council has agreed to offer to lend funds to Shropshire Housing Limited, which incorporates both Shropshire Housing Association and the Mears and Mosses Housing Association and Sevenside Housing at an agreed rate. I move the recommendations, Leader.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. All in favour? Guess who? Number 15, Michael.
The report of income review of fees and charges for 2016 identifies the amount of income raised by fees and charges for the Council and the element of that which can be set at the discretion of members as 15.57 million. The report recommends to Council the level of charges to be set by the Council for 2015-16. I move the recommendations 21 to 8 inclusive.
Okay, thank you. We all happy with that? Thank you very much. Item 16, quarter 3 performance reports. Tim.
My recommendation have a rest now. Just to point out a couple of things. The overall satisfaction rate by people in the local area has maintained its good performance in quarter 2. Well over 80%, which compares with 73% at the end of quarter 1. There are some number of improvements over the same period in 13-14. Recycling of household waste, fewer permanent admissions into residential care, reflecting the work being done by the director sitting on my left and the member sitting opposite me. And street cleanliness remains better than target. There are, however, still confirmed challenges. Increasing numbers of looked after children, although the percentage of children ceasing to be looked after for the corresponding period has maintained itself above target, which would suggest that a lot of the work that's been carried on in children's services to make sure that looked after children either stay looked after but need to be found permanent homes outside the looked after system produces the desired effects. We still have a lot of pressure on child protection plan referrals, which I think reflects national statistics, although we are above the average for similar English councils. There are a lot of positive things here, but there's still a lot of work to do, and I'm confident that my colleagues and I will continue to be able to reduce that. So I move the recommendation in paragraph 2.
Okay, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Yes, sir, Michael.
Short break.
The asset management strategy has been reviewed to take into account the changing needs of the authority. This new strategy will focus on minimising the council's use of accommodation as part of its programme to encourage agile ways of working. The strategy will also focus on maximising income from the remaining estate, investing in surplus property if alternative uses can be secured. I move the recommendation 2-1.
Seconded. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Hubs Commission role. I think we have to do something about this one. Where are you at?
It's only complicated. It's time. Community hubs such as those in the Guildhall in Shrewsbury and the foyer of the Oswestry Library are a new way of delivering council services. They are local support in our communities, designed very much to meet our citizens' needs and build resilience against future dependency. Hubs are not based simply on reducing the cost of our transactions, but instead are based on customer independence and early intervention, working very much in partnership with a range of organisations in the housing, voluntary and community sector. The Community Hub design pulls together a number of important work strands. The Resilient Communities Project, the Welfare Reform Support Framework and the future direction of Job Centre Plus, whose pilot work suggests increasing integration with local authorities at the new universal credit rolls itself out. The model is now mature enough to consider the opportunity of commissioning hubs through alternative providers. A resulting decrease in our direct input would contribute to an estimated saving of £250,000. Shropshire Council should retain responsibility for one fully manned hub located very much in Shrewsbury, where continuing design innovation, including building and welfare reform structure, would influence future provision. We have received Transitional Challenge Award funding from DCLG to support the development of community hubs and to redesign our services in such a way that they provide better outcomes for citizens and projected savings being greater than the investment. We have £520,000 to focus on at least 6 locations: Ludlow, Bridge North, Whitchurch, Market Drayton, Phosphor Street and Shrewsbury. The paper describes a real opportunity for the Council to commission client consultation space and activities through community venues and from community providers, including the voluntary sector, which has the potential to put our services in the heart of the communities, create real resilience in the community itself, as well as supporting the retention of local community facilities. I move the recommendation 3.1 and 3.2.
Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I note in 1.3, the final paragraph, a formal consultation on the commissioning of services and the changes in service delivery would be recommended and necessary in the areas indicated. I cannot see it in the recommendations. And I also see on page 4, in 5.5, picking up what was said about looking at assistance from other organisations, and I'm not sure whether there's been any discussion had or not, in that town and parish councils plus voluntary sector to take on the management of local services. Not sure if any conversations has been had, but I think you might have some difficulty with a number of parish and town councils given the consequential loss of funding that they had and a cutback in their services.
Yeah, in terms of consultation, like we're doing with a lot of the work, we're having what we call community conversations beforehand involving a broad range of partners. So with regards to hubs, we're involving town councils, parish councils where that's appropriate, voluntary and community sector, business sector even where that's appropriate, as well as some of those other providers that are referenced within the report. And clearly when we do go out to consult, we would consult locally within those local communities and as part of the commissioning approach, which I think is referenced in one of the recommendations. In terms of current engagement with town and parish councils around this model, that is happening. We have a live example of where that happened down in Craven Arms, at the community centre where the town council were heavily involved as part of that community conversation that I've referred to, and similarly we're at advanced stages of discussions up in Whitchurch with the town council there, again around this particular concept. So those conversations have started, but clearly there's more to be had.
Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. A hub is only for the area where it's at. And in this area, I assume the hub will be in Shrewsbury. So shouldn't some form of consultation be held with people who do not live in Shrewsbury, but will need to make access to the hub to ensure that they have access to the services that are wanted? And similar around the rural part of Whitchurch, the rural part of Osford Street, the rural part of Craven Arms, other areas besides that town council. We are the biggest, largest inland rural county, and the facilities should match that. I've already made reference about internet and broadband, so I want a consultation, yes, but let's have a real consultation.
Let's see. Yeah. Good. You agree? All right. Okay, all in favour of that? Yeah. Thank you. Discretionary housing payments policy.
Maybe we may get one or two comments on this, but I would recommend to reader that Chris would be best suited to probably answer those. But let's take it as it comes. I'll just open the batting, as it were. DHPs are short-term payments that can be made to help people whose housing benefit is less than their rent. They may also be for rent in advance and removal costs. These payments fall in the lap of the help of those affected by changes to the benefit system. The removal of the spare room subsidy, bringing in the benefit cap and restrictions to the level of help with private rent. DHPs have been in existence since 2001. The administration for DHP funding came before Performance Scrutiny Committee, and a new draft policy was one of the outcomes from the scrutiny meeting. The Shropshire approach explained in this policy has been to work with partners to seek more holistic solutions to those claiming, so that people do not become dependent on this fund. We believe our approach in looking at a person's own ability to meet rent shortfalls is fair and balanced, and has allowed us to operate within the limits of the money allocated to us. This is important given that the government's 2015-16 settlement for Shropshire is nearly £60,000 less than 2014-2015's figure of 383,819,000. Settlements to all councils are reduced. We are confident that this policy means we will be able to continue to operate this scheme within the limit set by the funding. Cabinet is requested to agree the draft for publication and consultation before being brought back to Cabinet for approval after any resulting amendments. I move.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you want indicated first, I think.
Sorry,
so we'll have Roger and then Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Argument about this was been well rehearsed. There's been 2 scrutiny committees looked at it, and it's in talking about scrutiny committees. I received a paper this morning from Grant Thornton, who looked at local government review and governance, and they show that in there only 43%.
Roger. Has this got anything to do with the matter on the agenda? Because
It
listen,
is
no,
to do with the scrutiny and the report.
No, come on. Don't stretch the boundaries. I let you sit at the table and participate in the debate. I let you speak on numerous occasions. I don't have to, all right? So stick to the point.
Discretionary housing payments, you'll see in the report that £61,000 was returned in 12-13, £83,000 in 13-14. And also, not in the report, but I did some investigation about discretionary housing payments, and I noticed that other authorities are spending all theirs. And one near us, Telford and Wrekin, they had £356,911 for discretionary housing payments. Guess how much they spent? £356,419.
I accept the fact that you'd be an expert at spending public money. I accept that.
It's public
You're just
money
not, you're just not really saying it,
to the
Roger.
deserving cases. And there is the disabled living allowance, and it goes into the report and says it, that the Task and Finish group recommended June 2014 that the disabled living allowance should be discounted. It was said that it would be reviewed in December with a view, hopefully, of being able to spend all the money this year, which is what was being highlighted. In the scrutiny, when it looked at it a few weeks ago, it was highlighted that nothing has happened. It's now going out for consultation again, and this council is sending back 83,000, which if the disabled living allowance had been not counted as an income, which I feel it shouldn't be counted as an income, a lot less money would have been sent back to government, and those in need would have got the assistance that was meant for.
Can I come in before Chris?
Yes.
To come back to Roger, because I think what we should note first is it's been said about DHP's short-term funding is not permanent funding. It's purely to fill the gap when there's a certain issue or problems arisen. And you're normally looking at very short-term, at maximum 6 months. I've spoke before on this, and I've had cases now, and I always use the one where the poor guy got motor neurone disease and was couldn't meet his rent, needed the extra housing benefit. What a great use for it. That's what it's for. It went through scrutiny, and for those who attended the scrutiny meeting and listened to it, Roger, you were there. I thought it had a very good debate. I thought Chris Westwood and the crew explained very well how the criteria worked, how we spent the funding. And the point of it is we want that funding to go to those people in most need. If we applied the criteria with the DL in place, we probably would have run out of money quite a while ago, which means that people between now and the new funding year would not get the money they're entitled to. The DLA, I understand where you're coming from, the point that you make, you can review it by all means, but what you can't do, you cannot go back and say, well, let's change the criteria now because we've got some money left. You can't do that. Whatever your criteria was at the beginning of the year, it's got to be the same criteria at the end of the year to be fair to everyone. And I think we've done that well. It's interesting, we might be returning 80,000, but if we listen to what we're being told, next year we get 60,000 less. So the gap next year, I guess, won't be quite as big as we expect. In fact, we probably might run out. So whilst I hear the argument of the DLA, the money's got to go to those people who are most in need. And I think the system that Chris and his staff use is fair. It's been scrutinised, and it's interesting that there's been a lot in the press on this, which quite irritates me in a way. One of your members was the lead on this and did an excellent job on the research into it and come up with results and presented the report to scrutiny. So
yeah,
I think to be fair, it does what it says on the box, and we should allow it to continue to do it.
Yeah, never let the truth get in the way of good political stories. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I think that answered it perfectly. Do you want to comment?
The only other comment that I would like to make, Mr. Chairman, it's true that it's an undeniable fact that we have returned money, but the strength of the argument is this: we have to work very much in balance against unknown quantities, especially as this country rolls out with new benefits and the pressures they're likely to bring. What we do know is that the funding for this year means that where we continue to increase our spending in that way, we would overspend, and I think the end of this year will show that we're spending around £300,000. That's getting very, very close to our limit.
And that was 80,000 more than last year.
88,000.
88,000, yeah.
And I would expect there to be further pressure on this budget to come, particularly from the payment of rents in advance to help people move, and the removal costs which can't be met from our local support prevention funding alone. So I think we're probably going to need into the 20,000 that we have left over this year's spending.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And can I personally commend you for the work you do, because you're dealing with a very difficult situation, people who really are at the point of need, and balancing the budget's incredibly difficult. And I find it quite discouraging that people try to make politics out of that, but that's the world we live in. Do you want to come back, Roger?
Yes, please, Chairman. On behalf of the vulnerable, and I'm not making...
You're speaking on behalf of the vulnerable?
On behalf of the vulnerable.
You were speaking on behalf of the vulnerable?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know you were qualified for that, but that's new. Good.
You don't know where I'm coming from, Chairman, or what I'm qualified.
What I do know, let's give you an example. No, I'm sorry, Roger, I'm speaking. Roger, no, I'm not going to insults. I'm chairing this meeting, Roger. Let's just say, I was reading a leaflet, you brought some leaflets, I was reading one just yesterday, when the Liberal Democrats in Oswestry said, we're cutting £1 million from the grant aid going to town and parish councils. You know that's a lie, I know that's a lie. It's not true. It's a factual inaccuracy, but my lord, it doesn't stop you from putting it in print. I come back to it. Speak for the poor and the vulnerable, Roger.
I'm talking about the paper as I was directed to by yourself, without talking about that, which I can talk about.
Come on.
The budget that's there for this current financial year, Shropshire Council, it has overspent, but it's actually putting money into general reserves. Increasing the money. There is a surplus money going into reserves. So if the budget had been overspent and it went to the vulnerable, so what? There are money going into reserves. And if I can quote you, on this government table, Shropshire is missing from it. There's a complete blank line for Shropshire. We obviously didn't send a return in for the 13-14, and Chris wasn't there then, so whatever. Complete blank line. But if I go, and I can pick out various ones, if I get a Southwark, which is an area of deprivation, okay, they had £1.1 million in this discretionary housing payments, but they decided to pay out £2.2 million because of the vulnerable people in there. Now, disabled living allowance is not an income, it is there to enable those to have a quality of life that they should expect, And it is said by the housing providers in the original report, said that it should be discounted. And it's Shropshire Council officers who said, no, let's keep it in there because of the budget. But we will review it halfway through the year to see whether the budget is going to go back to government or whether there will be surplus and we can review it. That was not done.
Can I ask, I don't want to drag you into a political argument, but you make the decisions. There's no political intervention in the way these decisions are made. You make very difficult decisions. And as I said before, I commend you on that. Do you want to say anything, Matt? I mean, it's nonsense.
I will just come back because I believe the money's being spent in the right way. It's going to the most vulnerable people. That's what it's about. I acknowledge the point with the DLA, and I did say I agree with it. There's going to be a review done. But even if you'd carried out the review, you cannot then go back and alter the criteria that you used for the rest of the year. You could change it for the following year if you wish.
But you can't do it in the current
But I would suggest that what we're hearing is that the budget for next year is going to be reduced by so much anyway. Actually, we're only going to be breaking even. And yes, the RP would like it, the DLA, to be included because I know it gives more funding to their tenants. But at the same time, we have to use the money in the best way that we can, and we're doing it.
Okay, let's move on. Are we all happy to accept what okay. Local support pension fund policy.
This fund is Shropshire's replacement for the elements of the social fund that were transferred to us by the Department for Work and Pensions from April of 2013. It is part of the framework of support that it is vital to the reforms of the benefit system. The fund is aimed at some of the most vulnerable people that Mal has been talking about in Shropshire, and is used to provide goods or services that might help to keep a vulnerable person independent in the community. Alternatively, it may also be used to help a person in crisis who may have no other way of meeting their needs. The fund works with and helps to support community organisations such as local food banks and furniture schemes, so reserving cash awards a last resort for the most vulnerable. This approach has helped to ensure best value for the taxpayer. By working in partnership, we have kept our spending at a very cost-effective level, and we are in position to continue our local support and prevention provision beyond April of 2015, beyond the end of the funding from the Department of Work and Pensions. We anticipate our fund will last us for the further 4 to 5 years, and this coincides with the rollout period of the new universal credit, which will start in Shropshire April 2015. There is therefore a requirement for a covering policy, and the draft before Cabinet seeks to provide a transparent and comprehensive overview of how the scheme will be administered going forward. And I move the recommendation 2.1.
Seconded? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Okay, well, happy with that. Which leads me to the Better Care Fund. I'm on. I think I need sustenance actually from you all. I don't think it'd be appropriate to eat it, do you? Go on, Lee.
Thank you, Leader. The paper before us is the culmination of a considerable amount of work being done by both by this authority and the CCG to arrive at an approved plan which we were asked to develop by central government around what's being called the Better Care Fund. This is a single pooled budget that is to be used to deliver a more integrated approach from the health and social care economies. The agreement, the partnership agreement that's before us here, sets out the financial and non-financial management arrangements between the Council, the Clinical Commissioning Group and our other partner organisations. Two key aspects to it. It sets out the detail around the way that risk is managed between the two organisations. It sets up a formal Section 75 pool budget. That pool budget will be held on behalf of the partnership by Shropshire Council, and the agreement itself will be reviewed in 6 months' time, both by the Health and Wellbeing Delivery Group and this council and the CCG. I would just like to take the opportunity to commend the work done, particularly by one officer, Kerry Allwood, who took what was an extremely difficult proposal, not given a huge amount of time by NHS England, and brought it all together and got us to what I think is one of the most cogent and best prepared Better Care Fund plans across the sector, and I'd just like to have that formally noted, in addition to formally proposing the recommendations before us.
Okay, thank you. Somebody second? Yeah, can I concur with that, Kerry? Okay, really well done. Really good piece of work. Thank you. Okay, are we all in favour of that? Okay, great. Mal, update on student accommodation.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. It's really nice to be able to give some good news. I think the University Centre Shrewsbury is probably the best thing that's happened to Shrewsbury and Shropshire for many, many years. I'm actually disappointed that Councillor Alan Moses left the room, because he's one of those that I'm sure would appreciate this paper. And I had the opportunity to go to a meeting last week at Rowley's House to meet with members of Chester University and also members of Shropshire Council to discuss what was going to happen with the university. And I think I say it's a really shame I was not here, because he chaired that meeting. And at the beginning of the meeting he said, I'm 100% behind it. But he said, if we could resolve some of the issues around accommodation and what impact it'll have on the town, I'll be 120% behind it. By the end of that meeting, he was 120% behind what was happening with the university. So I'm disappointed not here to say that. But what came out of that meeting was all the players, as I call them, in the Shrewsbury Town Centre, who've got concerns about the university and accommodation were at this meeting. And they heard directly from Chester University, from the Dean, and also from what's known as the Proctor's Office. And they explained how they were going to set up the university and the codes of practice, codes of conduct that would be in place to protect not only local residents, but more importantly, local students. So it wasn't just about how do we protect the town centre. It was fantastic to hear. Actually, we have a duty of care to all those students who are going to be coming to Shrewsbury. And I say all that, Leader, because it links in with what we've got before us. What we said we would do as part of the process was to look at a comprehensive student accommodation strategy for Shrewsbury, which we will do. We will look at an accreditation system, so when students come to Shrewsbury, if they go through university, they'll know that the accommodation that they're going to go into is going to be accredited, which means I think that gives us an assurance that the properties they go into are correct. But we'd also said we'd look at the planning policies around HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, and that's where Alan was really concerned about that. Those policies will be put in place, Leader. I think it's interesting that many people have jumped on the bandwagon about it's a planning issue with regard to HMOs. It actually isn't just a planning issue. It's actually a housing issue as well under the Housing Act 2004. So really this paper is going to bring it together. We will do the work, we will consult, and we'll bring it back to Cabinet in the future. Just a quickie as well, what came out last week, and if you haven't heard it, we'll just repeat it. Mardle House in the middle of the town centre will be our first student accommodation. My understanding is, Leader, it's now in the full ownership of Shropshire Council again. The contract is out with Wilmot Dixon to build 85 units, and they will be up and running by the end of August. So as far as I'm concerned, it's good news, win-win situation. So I look forward to bringing your report back later in the year.
Thank you, Mark. That's very good. It's just nice to see things progressing. And the beauty about the situation is because it's a partnership between Shropshire Council and Chester University, we have control over these things in a different way than a provider coming into town and doing it. Are we all happy with that? Yes. Thank you. Which takes me on to item 26. Final business case of the result of the new delivery model for planning, public protection, environmental and business support services. Is this you, Mark?
Just confirm, sorry, Lee, can you just confirm, because it's a bit confusing, is the agenda
No. Originally in the original agenda I received, it was showing in 5, but it is not just a public report.
I'm fine with that, I just wanted to make it clear.
No, absolutely.
The document I've got says it isn't. Right. Again, you've just listened to me, I'm a bit like Mike, you have to listen to me for a while longer. What we've got is the interim business case that was approved by Cabinet back in July 2014. I don't tend to go through all the document, but I do tend to highlight one or two issues within it, so we're all aware of them. I'd like to start the other way around. I actually have to thank the staff and the officers for the work that they've done by putting this together, and for their enthusiasm, expertise, direction and support, because without that, we would never have got to where we are today. And all this work has been done at the same time as, of course, the day job was also going to be done. And many of those officers are in this room with us today. The purpose of the exercise, as far as I'm concerned, was to look at a way of reducing operating costs, support costs, and generate income to, more importantly, protect the jobs that we've got. And I think, from my point of view, and I think I can say this very safely, that the cuts that we've had in the past, the regulated services have been at the front line of that, and have felt the brunt, and clearly we have to look at doing something very differently. Because we have some unresolved issues, and I will pick up one or two in a minute, we intend for the first contract to be a 12-month secondment of staff whilst those issues are resolved, and then a 5-year contract thereafter. I think everybody in this room, regardless of your politics or where you're from, would say that after the May election, it doesn't matter where you are, things for local authorities are not going to alter. We will still see reductions in income and grant, so we need to be doing something different.
I think they're going to get worse, actually.
Well, okay. I just want to refer to you, if you've got a report in front of you, section 312, and I will, you'll bear with me, but I do intend to read these out because I think they're significant.
No, absolutely fine.
It says the proposed transfer provides the opportunity for the council to reduce operating support costs and to create a viable commercial support service to IP&E Limited. This commercial support service will allow the generation of new income streams to combat the anticipated reduction in future funding. Ultimately, this aims to maintain the critical public-facing services. In 313, given the current anticipated future reductions in funding to local governments, if services remain in the council, there could be an increasing risk that the pressure and associated service risk could escalate. And I actually believe that. I really believe that we've gone as far as we can go with these regulatory services, and we cannot afford to take any more. So it's got to be something different. The addition and the ability to generate income and reduce operating support costs enabled by the move into IP would not be realised. So failures in service delivery may lead to service complaints by the local government arms and legal challenges, and ultimately failure of delivery of the council's statutory obligations. The reputation of the council is also at risk and would impact on the council's delivery and price outcomes. I think even already, if we're honest with ourselves, we've seen some of those things happening. I think we've got to be realistic. So again, I reinforce my position. If you look at section 315 of the report, it talks about the risks. And there are many risks. It doesn't matter what you do, there's always risk. But I'm pleased that all those risks have been through and have been are going to be mitigated. And again, I'll read this section to you, 316, because I think it's relevant. There's no guarantee, irrespective of how effective the mitigating measures are in reducing the identified risks, that the council will not become subject to legal challenge at some point in the future. However, having given due consideration to this and other risks, it is concluded that the overall benefits associated with retaining the services within the council, and I think that's important. So I think we're doing the right thing. Financial implications. Again, if you look within the report, you'll see that the budget that goes with with Falcon into IP is the same. So we're not talking about increasing or reducing at this stage. It's the same budget. It's just the way that it's utilised and the way that it's spent. Another section of that is the service level agreements. And again, Leader, I spoke to Cabinet quite some length about this a while ago, about how we did it with the Almo, that the service level agreements were kept with the council, and after 12 months they were reviewed. It will be the same in this instance. So clearly we want to buy back our services from Shropshire Council, but we need to make sure that those costs are reduced and the price that we're prepared to pay. So that's where we're going. Decision making, I've had a few questions about decision making. Well, what happens about with all these planners and product protection going into IPE? Who makes the decision? Well, the decision stays with those in Shropshire Council. The IPE can do the work, but the actual decisions are still made by officers who have responsibility to Shropshire Council. So I think that clears that one up. Consultation, we went out to consultation on the document between May and July last year to do this. Some may have picked up that we actually consulted as it being a subsidiary to an IPE. It's actually now going to be part of IPE. But my understanding is the material difference between the two is nothing, so we don't need to reconsult. Okay. And the final one, getting there. The final one I'm going to come to is about the governance arrangements. Clearly, we need to make sure what we do with IPE and our services are correctly governed and monitored. I've always said, not just with this service, but with other services, the governance needs to be clear, it also needs to be simple, and it needs to be minimal in numbers. There's no point in having a service outside in IPE if you've got equal numbers monitoring from the inside within the council. It's pointless. So the idea is that the governance process will be similar to the ALMO, and that with that, there are members on that, there are officers within the council, and clearly in this one, I welcome members from all parties to be part of the governance arrangements and to monitor Falcon when it's up and running. So it takes me back, Leader, now to the recommendations, 212 to 217. I'm not going to go through them, you've had them, you've read them. What it does is gives us the flexibility to get Falcon up and running as soon as possible, to second the staff across, and then obviously the ultimate is, if once we sort out some of the problems that we have, particularly around pensions, that we were looking for a 5-year contract and moving out at a later date. So that's a very quick resume of what I've got. I hope I've covered most of the point. I'm happy for either myself to try and answer the questions or those in the room that have got the specialists.
Okay, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thanks, Mel, for the Fulcrum governance arrangement. We'll talk maybe outside this meeting about how to do it, because it will be, it's how it's operating in the future will be important. Not happy with this. Essentially, it's because of the statutory authority that this council has to in regulation, and we are going to second employees to IPE
for a short period of time.
Yeah, once we sort out the legal necessities of it, those employees are expected to continue making those statutory regulations and act on whatever is needed. But after 12 months, they may well be not Shropshire Council employees. They'll be IPE, a commercial organisation exercising statutory rights. It may be, if the legalities are right. We are seconding them to enable that to take place. But it does give me great concern that trading standards and building and all the other things which we have statutory responsibility for.
We have an answer, but if it's okay with you, George, I'll speak to you after the meeting.
Okay.
There is an answer to all your questions,
Right.
which are fair questions.
That's my concern with it.
I could just make a sort of
comment
to it.
Let George talk to him, unless you really desperately want to. I don't mind.
Well, another thing I would say, we have nothing to hide here. The process is what it is. And I'm sure I won't get it quite correct, but my understanding is it's all about the way the structure is laid out and the management is laid out. As I said earlier, when you've got statutory functions, those functions still remain with Shropshire Council. They do not go to IPE. So it's about who's delegated to make those decisions. The staff will do the work a bit like they do in planning now, but someone over them will be the delegated person from Shropshire Council who will actually sign it off. That's how it works. Just a second, clearly also what we're looking at is, and this is probably part of the difficult bit, is how do we have the contract? Is the contract, are you employed by Shropshire Council? Do you have a dual contract to cover both? And I agree with you, there's a grey area, but I think it's quite clear at the end of the day who makes the decision.
I think you're right.
Yeah. It's just that in 651, 653, it's in that area there, which concerns me because it is important there for the health for well-being and everything else like that to do with the residents in Shropshire, and for the democratic process to be involved with it as well.
Can I come back again?
Yeah, go for
I
it.
totally concur, Roger, but as I said at part of at the beginning about the costs and the budget cuts we're having, I think there'd be more detriment to the residents of Shropshire if we maintain as we are. We need to do something differently. We need to make sure that A, we can retain the staff that we've got and give them the potential not just to do their current job but to earn as well. That's the only way we're going to protect the jobs. It was interesting you commented earlier, I made a note about the budget of the 1.4 million increase. Fantastic. I wrote down underneath it just for the benefit, and I'll use it now. It's great having 1.4 million increase in budget income coming in, but actually what it gives you is an increase in workload, increase in challenge, increase in appeals, you know, and all the rest. So it's not all good news unless you can use it in the right way. Clearly we're employing more staff, but I think the people in this room have put this together. I mean, that's the important part. It's not us doing it to them, it's the staff themselves that have come forward with the ideas, and the officers are ready to move in and start to do things different. It will be a different culture, it will be a different feel to it. I think in the first few months, you won't see or feel any different at all. The things will be going on behind the scenes. But eventually, we need to do things differently, Roger. I'm trying to give an example, and I'm probably doing this wrong by doing this, but I'll try. We looked at things like tree officers, and we said, what do tree officers do with regard to their work? This is hypothetical, so please don't quote this as an total example. If we inspect all our trees along our roadways and our schools once a year, say we did that, there are other authorities around us that don't do any. They don't do any inspections at all. So it's all about risk. It's about risk, and it's about what the insurance costs are if something goes wrong. I'm not saying we're going to change it, but I would be looking to say, well, actually, hypothetically, if we're doing them once a year, do we need to do them once a year, or can we do them once every 2 years, and then we release up the capacity of that person then to earn more income doing tree works elsewhere? That's the way I'm thinking about it. It's a total redesign, it's a total different way of thinking, but your statutory functions still remain.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I have to comment. I think probably first on the increase in income, which you both picked up on. I mean, the workload for people within the council and less people doing vastly more work. You know, I think everyone should be really congratulated on the time and effort they've put in to generate that volume of income. You should be very proud of yourselves and what you've achieved. What this does is gives you protection, gives you the future in your own hands to go out and generate business and sell your services, and I see this as a job creation opportunity, and I think we've got the talent within the department. I think it will fly once we let you. So I see this as nothing but positive. You're still part of the council, because we own the company 100%. You're still in the council pension scheme, nothing has changed, but it's going to give you the opportunity to sell and develop the services you've got. Okay, anything else? Are we all happy with that? Yes. Thank you very much indeed. Somebody move into private session, please. Move, seconded. Thank you.